Hello everybody, welcome to the Star Trek Deep Space Nine review show. My name is Fletcher. This guy about to say hello is Data.
Yo.
Today we're going to recap, rate, and discuss Season 1, Episode 9, The Passenger. Alternate title, The Great Duridium Caper. There will be full spoilers through this episode, and since we both have seen the whole series, possible accidental minor spoilers for later in the show, but we will try to avoid doing that. This episode originally aired February 21st, 1993, between the Next Generation episodes Tapestry and Birthright Part 1.
Okay, so those aren't bad episodes.
Tapestry, definitely classic.
Yep.
Birthright Part 1 is a Deep Space Nine crossover.
Oh, yeah, okay, so that's the one where Bashir shows up. Right.
So I'm almost wondering if we should watch that one.
Just to discuss Bashir.
Well, like watch that one and the next Deep Space Nine episode. And, just, do a little mini review of it or something in there, if we have time.
Could do.
Or just, brief thoughts on it.
I don't mind watching a Next Generation episode, so,
Because I think Worf goes to Deep Space Nine and he meets that guy, and I'm going to be honest, I usually, when I'm rewatching Deep Space Nine, or when I'm rewatching Next Generation, I tend to skip Worf episodes.
Oh.
But, I probably shouldn't do that, but they're always just a little too heavy on the Klingon stuff.
I'd forgotten that's mainly a Worf story, because when we first started, we did the first episode of Deep Space Nine, and we had the talk about doesn't Bashir show up on one of those episodes?
Yeah.
And so then I went and I just watched the Bashir and Data and then Geordi bits, where it's Data learns how to dream or whatever. So until you said that, I'd completely forgotten that those two episodes are mostly about Worf, actually.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's some Soong stuff in there too, isn't there?
Yeah, I think it's supposed to be, they both have a birthright thing going on.
Yeah, like I said, I haven't watched that episode in a really long time, so I probably should watch it anyway. And there's another episode, I don't remember which one it is, where they need help and Riker calls Quark.
Yeah, yep. Let me see.
But I do not remember what episode that is.
Because Quark owes him money. Let's see if I can...
Oh yeah, Riker
Firstborn?
Riker won money at the Dabo or something.
Yeah, it's Quark didn't have enough to cover him, he says, and so he's like, you owe me.
That sounds right. Is that another Data episode?
So they're looking for the Duras sisters. And so it's I'll call Deep Space Nine.
Oh, okay.
I also so now I'm watching the clip, and it's they're no one's seen the Duras sisters since they left Deep Space Nine. And so he's like, hey, Worf, have we got a hold of Deep Space Nine yet? And he's like, yeah, it's coming up now. And then it goes directly to Quark.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how is that the person it's we want to talk to Deep Space Nine. Let's talk to Quark.
Quark probably has he has a hack in there to get all the calls so he can filter out any lucrative ones. Or they just Quark's hey, whenever you need to call Deep Space Nine, call this number. And
but yes, that's another Worf episode where he's that's the one with Alexander from the future.
Ooh.
Anyway, sorry. We're watching an episode of Deep Space Nine.
Which one is the one with Alexander from the future?
It's called Firstborn.
Oh, okay. I don't know if we need to watch that one, but definitely I think I'm going to be checking out Birthright. Especially since the next episode is Move Along Home.
Yeah.
And, we can just go crazy with that. Anyway. So in this episode, Kira and Bashir are on a runabout on the way back to the station from something. Whatever it was, it apparently involved Dr. Bashir bringing an apparently dead patient back to life.
And he is so full of himself about it that I am so glad that I said this last week about the wannabe ladies man thing, but this is his other character trait where he's just so full of himself and stuck up, and I'm like, I'm glad that this is not forever because I hate him.
At least there's no ladies' man stuff.
I don't know. Episode. I kind of thought he felt like he was hitting on Kira a little bit there, but
could be. And there's a scene later which I think might be explained, or can only really be explained by someone being uncomfortable around him. Anyway, yeah, Kira is amazed and disturbed by what she saw. Bashir is insufferable, as usual. Suddenly they get a distress signal from a Kobliot transport ship.
Yep.
Kira and Bashir beam over to find the ship on fire and one apparent survivor. Bashir detects another life sign behind a locked door and tries to get through, despite the other survivors' warnings that the person behind the door is a dangerous prisoner. Bashir gets through and tries to save the prisoner, who grabs Bashir's neck and says, "Make me live."
Really, it doesn't make her look that good that she's like, yeah, the ship's on fire, we're all gonna die, but don't let him out. Let him die, that's fine. He started this fire anyway. First impression, it doesn't seem that good. Back at the infirmary on Deep Space Nine, the survivor identifies herself as Tai Kajada of Kobliot Security. She was transporting a prisoner named Vantika, sometimes pronounced Vantika, whom she has been chasing for 20 years and who has apparently committed horrible crimes on his home planet in order to prolong his own life. Kajada refuses to believe he's dead and insists on examining the body, which she stabs. Yep, gotta make sure. It's the only way to be sure, or whatever.
Yep. Nuke it from orbit.
Yep.
She asks for an autopsy and a scan of her ship to make sure there's no way he could have survived. At Quark's, Quark serves Dax an iced Ractigino with extra cream. This week it's apparently Quark's turn to creep on Dax.
Yep.
He remarks that Dax is obviously in love with him. Odo tells him he's delusional, and he replies that there's nothing wrong with a good delusion.
At least he's only creeping from afar. I mean, he's like very over the top when handing her coffee, but other than that, he's just like staring at her and talking to Odo about her. He's not like up in her face like, hey, what about we go back to your quarters? And
how about I keep you up all night?
Yeah.
As Quark stares at Dax, he longs for the feel of smooth, pliant flesh, a phrase I hope to never hear again. Odo, likely equally grossed out, changes the subject to the upcoming Duridium shipment and how Quark should not steal it.
Just FYI, don't be stealing it.
It's like, Duridium shipment, if you're thinking of stealing it, don't do that.
And of course, he is thinking of, like, it's not personally stealing it, but arranging for its theft. And apparently, this phases him not at all.
Yeah, well, he's too distracted with Dax. I like how that scene ends where Odo's like, I'm watching you, Quark, and Quark goes, and I'm watching you, Jadzia. So, it's not quite as bad creeping, except for he said the words smooth, pliant flesh. Still not great. As he leaves Quark's, Odo is approached by a Lieutenant George Primin of Starfleet Security. Apparently, he's in charge of security for this Duridium shipment, or something.
Yeah. He says it took him 3 weeks to get here. So I don't know where he was coming from for this assignment, but I feel like there must have been some people closer.
He's an expert on guarding Duridium shipments, maybe. Anyway, and he doesn't like Odo going around blabbing about it.
Which, okay, I think that's fair. I mean, Sisko makes a point later where he's like, look, everyone's going to find out. You can't keep a secret around a place like this. So Odo was just, making sure that Quark knows that we know that he knows.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm like, you're just going to be in the bar, like, loudly talking about the Duridium shipment?
It kind of reminds me of, you remember that movie Charlie Wilson's War?
Yeah.
Where, someone's like, should we, be talking about this? He's like, it's the Cold War. People know what's going on. In Ops, Bashir confirms to the senior officers his findings that Vantika is dead. The group deduces that he was probably on his way to Deep Space Nine to hijack the Duridium shipment. It seems the Kobliad are a, quote, dying race and need Duridium to not die. So if this is a plague or... I felt that was kind of a weird way to phrase that.
Yeah, it's really unclear what exactly is happening here. It's just like this they need this material, and apparently it's super rare, and I guess another thing that cannot be replicated. And they've got new Duridium mines in the Gamma Quadrant.
Yep. Although the details of this Duridium shipment are never explained. Like, how did they secure this source of Duridium in the Gamma Quadrant? I mean, this is still early days. They still pretty much don't know what or who is over there.
Yep.
It seems like. But it seems like they've made friends with these aliens that have Duridium.
Or maybe it's like something you mine in a nebula and they just found a nebula. Who knows?
True. Like, yeah, it might be a resource that, like, you know, is only... They do say it's toxic at one point.
Yeah, because they're like, oh, we can't let it get out into space. It'll like go all over the system and everyone will have to be evacuated, which that's bad. Like if some of it leaks out here at Deep Space Nine, it will spread all over the Bajor system and we'll have to evacuate entirely. And I was like, geez, that's some pretty bad shit.
Yeah, unless you're a Kobliad.
Right. It somehow keeps them from dying. I don't know.
Then it's good. Lieutenant Premin comes to complain about Odo to Sisko. Sisko curtly reminds him that this is a Bajoran station and Odo is in charge of security, and there's no reason for the lieutenant to be throwing his weight around. Later, while reviewing security plans for the shipment, Premin and Odo discover that not only are the plans missing, but the entire system has been hacked.
I do like that Premin goes into Odo's office and, he does his whole apology thing, and he's like, no hard feelings, I'm not trying to throw my weight around or whatever, and Odo's very magnanimous about it. And then Premin's just like, okay, so yeah, let's take a look at your security plan. We'll see if there's anything we can work with, which is just super condescending. Uh-huh. And Odo's like, well, look, you can look at my plan, and if you have some suggestions, I will listen to them. But I need to clarify once again, I am in charge here.
Yeah. I'm also not clear, maybe it was explained, but like, so whoever hacked their system didn't actually see their security plan, right? They just made it to where they can't see their own security plan.
No, I think that they got the security plan somehow. Like, that was the implication, that it was like, they didn't just go after the one file, because the one file would be protected. But if you take down, like, everything in active memory, then he can basically get a hold of everything at once or something. And that gives him the security plan.
I'll allow it. Whatever. Kachada tells the crew that this is a classic Vantika move, and takes it as proof that he must be alive and planning to steal the Duridium. Odo asks to see Sisko and throws a temper tantrum, threatening to resign over having to work with Premin. Sisko calms him down and reassures him that he is in charge of security.
See, I like that this is something that they were going to have to address at some point, because that Starfleet is going to have stuff that they want to say about security at some point. Mm-hmm. So sooner or later, we had to have this conversation where, like, some Starfleet guys, like, hey, security, blah, blah, blah. And Odo's going to be like, no, I'm security, blah, blah, blah. And so I feel like they handled it okay. Like, I think, that since it was a thing that was going to happen, that it's kind of necessary for Odo's character, that they did a decent job of that here.
Yeah, I guess from his point of view, if just, like, Starfleet guys are showing up every other week, like, trying to take over his security stuff, that would be annoying. I don't know if he had to, like, threaten to resign. I feel like that was a little, like...
Well, part of the problem is that this should have been something that Sisko established with both of them as, the commanding officer, instead of just, like, letting them meet up on their own before he'd even told Odo this other guy was showing up. Like, from Odo's perspective, this guy just shows up more than once and is, like, talking shit about his security setup and being like, well, let me tell you, blah, blah, blah. And so Odo's like, well, wait, what is going on here? Are you trying to put some other guy in charge of security?
Yeah.
Like, I want firmly established boundaries of how this is going to work, which is exactly what Sisko should have done. Like, some new guy going to help with security come on the station. Sisko needs to meet with both of them and be like, okay, so Odo's in charge. You're going to go work with him, and you can give suggestions and take care of Starfleet interests. Because once he explains it to Odo, Odo's like, okay, no, this sounds reasonable. I totally understand where you're coming from, and I can live with what you're saying. It's just like he comes in and threatens to quit because he thinks that this other guy is showing up to take over security, and nobody even bothered to mention it to him.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess it doesn't make sense. Dax reports that the scan of Kachada's ship didn't turn up anything unusual, except someone tried to break into the cargo bay after the ship docked. Dax also found a computer chip in Vantika's belongings containing a map of a humanoid brain. At the bar, Quark is on his hands and knees picking up lost coins, when he is accosted from behind by a mysterious figure disguising their voice and identifying themselves as Vantika. Quark confirms that the plans to steal the Duridium are in place.
There's a great moment. There's like a frame or two at the very end of this conversation when Quark gets thrown forward.
Yeah, you can clearly see who the person is.
You can absolutely see who it was.
You can pretty much tell who it is by their voice, too.
By the voice, too, yeah.
In the infirmary, Bashir shows Kachada seemingly conclusive evidence that Vantika is dead, based on matching DNA results. He asks why she wasn't around last night when the results came in, and she awkwardly fumbles through an excuse about having problems sleeping. Dax calls Bashir to her lab, where she presents evidence that Vantika may have transferred his consciousness into another brain before he died. Weirdly, nobody thinks to look into the last and only person who had contact with Vantika before his death.
The guy that he touched and said something creepy to. Mm-hmm. But it can't be him.
Well, it's not even one. Nobody says, like, hey, we should get a list of people who had contact with Vantika before his death. Anyway, the two present these findings to Sisko in a shot composed to make them look like Tweedledee and Tweedledum standing next to each other. Everybody decides that Kajada is probably the most likely suspect, and they shut her out of security for the Duridium shipment, which there is no reason for her to be a part of anyway.
Nope. Like, she has nothing to do with this.
She was just a random person who got rescued and showed up on the station.
I mean, I guess the Duridium is going to her people, but honestly, that's another reason just not to let her be involved. Because apparently they all need this to survive. Even if she's a cop, she has a good reason to, like, want some of it. So she just keep any Kobliads away from the Duridium for right now. At the bar, Quark discusses hijacking plans with his soldiers of fortune, who include a Bajoran pirate. Yeah.
And another alien who looks kind of like Soup Alien.
Yeah. It's just where we keep getting similar dudes.
But I can't quite tell if it's the same species or not.
Soup Alien. That's going to be a recurring theme now.
I mean, these Soup Aliens show up like every other episode, it seems like. Kajada tries to listen in from the shadows, but falls off a balcony. It seems she was pushed by an unseen assailant.
Bum, bum, bum.
Back in the, quote, stasis room, Dax is investigating Vantika's body and finds a microchip under his nail that she says he could use as a last resort to transfer his consciousness before death. She can use this information to develop a scan to find out who he put his consciousness into. Weirdly, she does not suggest gathering a list of people who Vantika touched with his hands before he died. And Kajada remains the prime suspect. Quark leads the soldiers of fortune to a runabout that Vantika has somehow managed to secure, for their operation. But when they go inside, there's nobody in there but Bashir. Or is it?
Bum, bum, bum.
In one of the great acting performances of all time.
Oh, gosh.
Alexander Siddig transforms before our eyes from Bashir to a totally new and absolutely convincing persona. Vantika.
I can't imagine what they were thinking when they're like, okay, we want you to give, like, the most wooden and stilted delivery for every line that he has. Like, act. And
Hello, Quark. It is I, Vantika.
And it's even worse because I then read that, like, they actually redubbed all of his lines as Vantika. Like, they said that Siddig originally did, like, a Bela Lugosi sort of thing, and they didn't like it, so they had him do it differently, and then and redubbed all the performance. And I was like, so this is the better version?
Wow.
Really? Okay.
Wow. Anyway, back in one of the sciencey rooms that all look the same.
Oh, hold on. Before we do that, I found out that, yes, this guy is of the same species as Soup Alien. They are called Markalians. Also, the guy from the very first episode that throws, like, the mace thing through Odo's head, he was also one of those.
Oh, okay. What about the auction guy from the Q episode?
He is not mentioned in here, so I guess he wasn't.
He's okay. So, they're not called Soup Aliens, they're called what?
Markalian.
Okay, we'll keep an eye out for Markalians.
So basically, aliens named Mark. Markalian.
Ah, okay, that makes it easy to remember. Anyway, back in one of the sciencey rooms that all look the same, Dax finds Bashir's comm badge and becomes worried. Odo finds Primin messing with a panel, and Primin explains that Odo's analysis of the earlier hacking situation inspired him to look for a similar exploit, which he found. It seems this exploit would have disabled the station long enough for Vantika to steal the Duridium. Now that plan is foiled. Odo is impressed, and I guess they're friends now, concluding this weird storyline.
Yeah, apparently Primin was in here partly. He's supposed to be some sort of red herring, so I guess it's like maybe he's Vantika, which I never got that in the least.
Yeah, they never. It's not like, the scene where she's like, "Oh, I have trouble sleeping" or whatever.
No, I mean, I guess the closest thing you get is where he's like, I sent Primin up here, and Kira's like, well, I haven't seen Primin all day. So we're supposed to be like, oh, wait, maybe it's him? But that's really the shallowest, like, I can't even imagine. I just assumed that Primin was somewhere second-guessing Odo's security arrangements.
Yeah, at no point did I read Primin as, like, a possible suspect. Although I found it kind of weird that our first introduction to him was drinking at Quark's bar.
Yeah.
And then he kind of, like, runs out and yells at Odo out of nowhere.
I think maybe also the reason I don't see Primin as a suspect is just because, like, it's obviously Bashir.
Right.
This is like the third or fourth mystery they've done in the first season of Deep Space Nine where, we have, like, a murder mystery sort of thing. Uh-huh. And I feel like they just cannot do it well. So it's really weird that they're doing it repeatedly when they don't do a great job of it. Because
it's not a murder mystery. It's a
okay.
What's the inverse of a murder mystery?
It's
It's not who's the killer. It's who's the dead guy.
Yeah, I don't know what you would call that.
This is also the second time that the solution is he's not really dead, unless you count the time that apparently happened right before this episode.
I guess it's like a spy hunt, almost? I don't know. But yeah, so I feel like they're not good at mysteries yet. And so they need to stop doing so many of them.
Yeah. Or they need to reevaluate their approach here.
At least this one didn't have the problem I had with the previous one, where it was like, with the last episode, actually, where we had the mystery and there was basically no way for you to figure it out until the end, where they're like, oh yeah, no, it was totally the dead guy that was the traitor.
True.
And so I was angry because they gave you no hints about that. And so here, it's just way too obvious who it is, and everyone is an idiot because no one considers this possibility.
Yeah, there's like, I feel like we were talking about last time when it was like by process of elimination, they figured it must be Dax.
Yeah.
And this is a case where, like, some equally weak logic would have easily fingered Bashir.
I mean, yeah, all you have to do is like, okay, who did he come in contact with or was like close to in any way? And it was like, okay, well, Kajata at some point, the dead pilot, Bashir, and maybe Kira.
Especially when she finds that that fingernail chip.
Yes, after that, it's like, come on.
If he touches you with his finger, then he can put his brain into your brain. Like, at that point, we'd be, okay, who did he touch with his fingers?
So, yeah, it's just, it's not that, it's just so obvious that it's kind of like, And then if the acting hadn't been so bad on Vantika Bashir, then maybe I could have let it pass, but it's just like,
It was like, it was so bad, but it was like, I couldn't stop chuckling at it. Because it was like, it kept almost escalating. He kept like recommitting to like this horrible performance. And I was like, oh wow, oh, that's how you're going to deliver that line. It's like, I will blow up the spaceship, Commander. I will go to warp.
And then I read these comments from the writer of the episode who was like, originally when I pitched it, they were like, we want to do a Hannibal Lecter sort of character.
What?
And then the next pitch meeting, they're like, we want to make sure we're not doing that. And so the guy's like, oh, wait, what? And so that could have been interesting if we had a Hannibal Lecter sort of character.
Sure. I mean, this is like fresh. This is like gotta be like fresh after Silence of the Lambs.
When did Silence of the Lambs come out? Let's see. Silence of the 1991.
Okay. So, another thing to go on a little bit of a tangent is I was thinking
Valentine's Day 1991. Weird. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
I was thinking because they use DNA to identify the body, right?
Yes.
For 1993, like DNA identification was like a really new thing. Although I feel like they talk about DNA in Next Gen all the time.
Yeah, I think you're right.
But I just thought that was kind of interesting because this is before even the OJ trial. That's when like, you know,
everyone started talking about DNA.
Yeah, using DNA to identify an individual person, kind of blew into everybody's consciousness all at once, except for the jury of that trial.
Well, it got a lot of discussion in that earlier episode with the clone. It was just that they didn't notice it was clone DNA, which was, in this episode, they're like, and I checked, it definitely wasn't a clone. Yeah.
I was glad they put that in there. It's like, oh, it's not a clone. Ruled that out. It's like, fool me once.
Exactly. But we missed out. Like, the Chief and Jake are still absent this week.
Yep. Yeah, that was
apparently Colm Meaney is off doing a movie or something during this period.
Yeah, that was in one of my notes. Is Chief O'Brien still on vacation?
I guess so.
So, okay, Odo and what's-his-face make friends, Primin. However, the heist is already in progress. Bashirntika and the Soldiers of Fortune beam to the freighter and kill or stun the crew with purple lightning lasers. However, DS9 was not disabled as expected and puts the ship in a tractor beam. Vantika threatens to go to warp and kill himself and Bashir's body in the process if they do not let them go. Vantika shoots his pilot, who bafflingly refuses to follow that order.
Yeah, I don't know. He seems real sure that Cisco would rather let them go than risk killing Bashir.
Well, also he had that thing like the Duridium would...
Oh yeah, I'll go all over the system. That's a good
system
point.
Or whatever.
Yeah,
so.
I don't know that I blame the pilot for being like, I am not as confident as you that he won't let us kill ourselves, but...
Yeah, I'm 100% with the pilot. In fact, like, as soon as he said that plan, I'd be like, wait, what?
But at the same time, it's like, okay, so what other options do we have right now? Like, I guess we can surrender and be arrested. Maybe it's better to take our chance dying.
I mean, I don't know. Okay, this just occurred to me. Vantika is now in Bashir's body.
Yep.
Why does he need the Duridium?
Yeah, I'd wondered that myself when they were talking about, like... Because kind of one of the reasons they jumped to the conclusion that Vantika must be in Kajata is this, like, well, they're the same species, so obviously that would be... And I was like, yeah, I wonder how different, like... human brains are from their brains. Apparently not so different that it doesn't. But yeah, he's just real determined to go through with his plan.
I guess he's going to sell it or something.
Yeah, maybe he wants to make some money. We keep hearing that his only thing is wanting to, like, live forever.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. It's weird, and I'm not even 100% sure that, like, his whole brain's in there. Maybe he just got that scheme, and so, like, what's left of him is determined to do it.
It could, it's like, remember Batman Beyond Return of the Joker?
Yeah, it is like that.
It's like, that's not his, like, real consciousness. That's just, like, some crazy stuff he put in his brain or whatever. So
I do like the comment about, like, the procedure, like putting your brain in somebody else. It's never been done by a non-Vulcan.
Oh yeah,
which is like, oh, we're talking about, like, Star Trek 3 now. I get it.
I also like that it had that stupid line that humanoids don't use their whole brains.
Oh yeah, like Bashir is so happy to say that, and I'm like, oh, come on.
Which, like, it's sealed this episode's rating, in my opinion, when he said that. But anyway, to conclude this episode, Dax concocts a way to use the tractor beam and shield harmonics or something to bring Bashir back into control of his body. The plan works, they beam Bashir out and shoot him, then get Vantika's brain out of his brain into a little disc thing, which Kajada destroys before strutting out like a boss. We cut to one last Tweedledee and Tweedledum shot of Dax and Bashir, and the episode ends.
I feel like the resolution is really unsatisfying because it's one of those, like, it gets made fun of all the time, where Star Trek solves something with, like, hand-wavy techno-babble. Yeah. Like, I'll create an electromagnetic pulse that's somehow tuned exactly to his DNA, and then we'll make it bounce off the shields, so the shields will become a transmitter of it somehow. And
yeah, it's just like, okay.
And then we'll use a transporter to lock onto only the glial cells with his DNA, so we can get them out of Bashir. And it's just like, this is so much techno-babble that doesn't even make any sense, really, when you think about it. So it's just, it's so unsatisfying, except for the part where Kajada, like, she's like, so the prisoner's mine again, right? And Cisco goes, yeah, you take him. What's left of him? Because it's just like a little, like, petri dish looking thing. And she's like, all right. And she pulls out a gun and disintegrates it and just strolls off. And they're just sitting there, like, looking at each other. Like, should we be upset about this?
Yeah. I mean, I guess she technically murdered a prisoner in custody, but it's like,
his whole brain's in there, supposedly. It's kind of like, when Moriarty hologram is in that little ball thing and allowed to live in or a cube thing. And so it's like, he's like a dude, a real whole dude. She just gets to execute him, and all right then. Okay.
Yeah. I think we're so sick of this guy.
Yeah.
And, like, just the Bashir and Tika performance is just so jarring. We're like, oh, just kill. I never want to see that again.
Yeah, given how dangerous he is, I'm absolutely on board with her murdering him. I just feel like they should probably take issue with that.
I mean, I guess he could have made a good recurring villain once or twice.
Showing back up in other bodies somehow.
It's like, I found a way to transfer my consciousness through a phaser beam into the brain of the person shooting me.
I mean, the way he did it, I don't know if from Dax's explanation, if I'm understanding it correctly, but it's like, was he just copying himself into Bashir? So he could have theoretically, like, copied himself into lots of other people before that? I mean, we could be dealing with, like, an Ultron situation.
I mean, there was heavy technobabble in this episode, and I had trouble parsing it all out. I kind of got the impression, like, the pattern of his consciousness leaves the original body. And
okay.
I don't know. Like I said, I just like to think of it as a Return of the Joker situation. So maybe. Anyway, okay, so I was editing the Q-less episode.
Yeah.
Which had a million tangents in it.
Yep.
And, okay, there was one about the Star Trek card game cards.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, this can all go. And then I saw in this episode a card I was like, no, now I have to leave it in so that I can bring up this point.
Okay.
Which is the skullduggery card is in this episode.
Is that the... Okay, hold on. Skull. Is that like the picture of them, like looking down on them having like that discussion? Because I remember that card. Like looking down on Quark and his... No, it's the one where the guy's grabbing Quark's head.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I saw that. I was like, I know that. So, yeah, bringing it back to that.
I know there's another dilemma that's like that image of like looking down on Quark and his mercenaries from above. And I'm going to have to find that now.
Nice. Okay, we talked about Chief O'Brien isn't here. You know what? Is Morn in this episode?
He's on the cast list, so I think he must show up in like one of those.
Oh, he must be in the bar. Okay. Oh, there he is. Okay, yeah. He's in the first bar scene, but he's just way in the background. So, do you have any points?
I think I've touched on everything I had about this. It's just I feel like we've once again had a premise that could have been interesting. There's lots of ways that Guy transfers his consciousness into somebody else could have been interesting and played. And I also and I like I said, I like the dynamic of Odo having this issue because I feel like it was bound to come up at some point.
Sure.
And needing to sort through it and try to actually get along with, because that's another thing about Odo is he's not great at getting along with people.
Right. That's like his core personality almost.
Yeah. And so seeing him have to work with people and recognize that, hey, other people can have good ideas too about security, even though you think you know everything or whatever. So there was some potential, a lot of potential in both of these storylines, and I feel like it just really gets blown. It not well done at all.
Yeah, especially with that one. I mean, like the stuff where he doesn't want like every Star Trek or Starfleet security guy coming in and like just getting his muddy shoes all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like it's good that we like address that point. But, like, this whole thing where it's, like, two security guys butting heads and learning to respect each other, which is, such a... we've seen this story a million times.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like it was just kind of rushed and sloppy, and I didn't care. Like, at the end where it's like, I used Odo's idea to solve this problem or whatever. I was like, okay, great. I guess the story's over now.
But it's funny that you mentioned the card game thing because I thought of the same thing, except it wasn't the skullduggery, which I should have, because I totally remember that card. It was Tai Kajata for me, who I was just like, I remember using Tai Kajata, and this is one of those situations where it's like I remember the card so well, and I don't remember the character from the episode like at all. And even after seeing her, I'm like, I feel like she looked different on the card than she does in this show.
Nice. She was kind of a fun character in that, like, she just absolutely refuses to believe that this guy is dead.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so you want to do an official rating?
Yeah. Let's do the rating. So I'm gonna give this one. I don't like it. I think it's not quite as bad as the last one. So I'm gonna say like Lieutenant Junior grade.
Okay. So you want to put it above or below A Man Alone?
I feel like it goes below A Man Alone for me.
Ooh. I'm not going to give it that negative. It's just such a blah episode. And, like, it's definitely below the line for me, but I think I'm going to call it a lieutenant.
Okay.
And, like I was kind of, like... Because it's on the line of just one of those ones where you're just, like, I'm not into it. This is just, like... This isn't working for me. And, one where it's, like, it keeps you just interested enough to, like, not get off the couch. But, like, when, Bashir said, like, humanoids don't use all their brains or something, I'm like, okay, no, this is below the line. So I'm giving it a lieutenant, or not a lieutenant. Yeah, a lieutenant.
Yeah.
Two pips is a lieutenant.
Right.
But whether I want to put it above or below A Man Alone, I want to say A Man Alone was slightly worse.
Okay.
Because A Man Alone... Because we were so mad that was kind of a frustrating episode where it was like, you know, it's an Odo episode, but Odo doesn't do anything, and then Whereas this was just like it was just a big mess of stuff. So Lieutenant, but I'm putting it just above A Man Alone, I think.
See, and one of the things about this episode that brings up a good point, because as we came into, like, before we were going to record, I sat down and I was thinking, like, is this, because we talked about, you know, a Kira episode, an Odo episode, an O'Brien episode. This isn't like an anybody episode.
Yeah.
Like, you could try to argue maybe it's a Bashir or an Odo episode. You can't. Odo's hard to argue because he's clearly the B story, but he gets more character anything than anyone else. Yeah. So I don't know.
I think maybe they were trying to put a little bit of spotlight on Bashir because, like, in the last couple of episodes, it's almost like Bashir was trying to get into the episode, but kept getting, like, rudely turned away.
He kind of does here too. Somebody else takes him over and he doesn't get to be involved.
He's like, fine. You know, it's like, so we come in at the beginning of the episode and it's like he's just had his moment. Like, he has solved this great medical thing and brought this apparently dead person back to life.
We don't see that, of course.
Yeah, we don't see that. And then, so he's riding high and then he gets this nice juicy medical mystery to solve. And then his brain gets hijacked and he becomes the villain for the rest of the episode.
And a really crappy one, too. So it's just...
Oh, yeah. Man, like, certainly, I mean, I want to know what was going on set that day.
I don't know. So it's just...
It's like, hello, gentlemen. I have been expecting you.
It's just so poor Bashir. He finally gets to play, and he doesn't even get to play. I would almost feel sorry for him, except for when he is being Bashir. He's so annoying that I'm almost relieved to get something else.
At least he doesn't hit on Dax. And I think maybe we got a scene, or there was a scene we didn't see where he was hitting on Kajada.
Yeah, it could have been.
And, like, that's why she got so, like, awkward at the mention of, like, what were you doing last night? When the answer probably was, like, she had, like, turned off her phone.
Yeah, doesn't want to talk to Bashir.
And was trying to avoid Bashir or something.
Could totally be that. So. Okay, one other thing that I read when I was reading this stuff about this episode, originally there was a song for Quark that was scripted, and I was like, okay, well, see, that could have gotten you a whole extra, like, half a pip here if you'd had a cool musical number in the middle of it. And it's just, I had Quark singing a whole little ditty like a hobbit. I took a day off to write this ditty about making money while he's serving people and shorting them on their drinks.
Wow. That's a shame.
I want that. I want a musical episode of Deep Space Nine like Buffy did.
I want, like, a compilation of, like, Ferengi scam ditties.
Yep.
Like,
that should have been, like, if he'd put that in the script here and they'd shot it, it could have been like a recurring thing where, like, Ferengi just sometimes write songs and sing them about, like, scamming people.
It's like, steal the coins off of the floor. Do 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 do.
I'm not sure really how I feel about Quark's. He's yelling at them because they've done a poor job of cleaning because he found coins on the floor. And so on the one, and he's like, "What if somebody left some valuable jewelry, huh? Fine, I'll clean, and then I'll find it and I'll keep it." And so
that was a little bit off brand moment there, but
on the one hand, I'm like, okay, well, yeah, that's Quark being shady and stuff, like keeping all the stuff that he finds. But on the other hand, that does seem like poor cleaning. If there's coins on the floor, you have not swept it.
These are like big looking coins too.
Yeah,
big clinky coins.
So I'm like, I think Quark may have a point that you guys are doing a crappy job of cleaning up if big stuff is still on the floor.
True. Yep. It's a little weird to see, like, Quark on his hands and knees, like, doing that kind of work, though.
I feel like they're once again trying to make use of this multi-level like set that they have. Like, they've got him, like, sticking his head through the railings or whatever, and I was like, is he going to get stuck or something? That's kind of... But no.
Yeah, they had that nice stunt where Kajada falls off the...
Yep.
the balcony.
It's a pretty good shot too.
Yeah, it works. And yeah, kind of like the over the shoulder POV stuff of her looking down on the guys.
Yep.
Some kind of creative stuff in there.
I feel like Odo should have been investigating Quark. Kajada should not have been sneaking in here and like trying to listen to them. Like Odo should have been shapeshifted in here somewhere.
Yeah, that's when I was watching that scene. I was like, "Don't you know Odo is like that glass over there or something?" But I guess he doesn't need to be. Kajada's just watching from the shadows.
Yeah.
Maybe Odo has learned to go and make sure, or maybe Quark has learned to go make sure Odo is in his bucket.
Probably a good plan, yeah.
Before conducting shady business. I don't know. But yeah, it's like, this did not look like a secure scenario to me. Like, Odo needs to have Quark. Quark needs to have a locked room with no objects in it.
Yeah, nothing at all.
And like, it's 100% secure and locked, and only he has the key. And when he needs to do shady business, they go into that room. And he, like, pats down the other people, like, extensively to make sure they don't have anything on them.
It would turn out Odo was, like, the key.
Yeah, probably. But, Odo needs to, or not, why do I keep saying Odo when I mean Quark? Quark needs to, like, be careful about this stuff, because he seems to get burned a lot.
He does. Although now we're talking about it, I feel like we should come to an issue at some point about like Odo and conservation of mass and like density of the things that he becomes when he's becoming small things.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I don't even care. Yeah, he did, like, how can he become a full-grown man and a little rat?
Yep. Or like that cart that Quark was pushing. I was like, there's no way that's as heavy as a person.
Yeah, how much does Odo weigh, I guess, is an important...
That's a good question. He might be like a big man-sized guy, but weigh very little and like be mostly hollow inside or something because of his mass. I don't know.
Yeah, he could just be like a very thin shell of a man. That would be kind of weird.
Well, he doesn't want to be way shorter than everybody else. He'd be like, maybe if he was like normal density, he'd be like a little kid, and that doesn't look good.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure this was brought up at some point in the writer's room, and they were just like, we're not going to worry about it.
Yeah, probably.
It's like, should we make a rule of like how big or small Odo can be? And they're like, no.
No. What if he needs to be a painting?
Yeah. Can he be a detailed painting with brushstrokes and everything on it? Yeah, sure.
But he can't like make a human face?
Yeah. Can he be a convincing human? No.
Good times.
Yep.
So yes, there's our ratings, and this episode another not great one, but still I think we're still way ahead of like Next Generation season 1 episodes.
Easily. It's like, there's more in the meh territory than the territory.
Yeah. Yeah, we're not dealing with some of that real garbagey I'm trying to remember some of those early Next Generation episodes. Like just the naked virus or whatever one, that one's not good. The fourth one, the Code of Honor one, we talked about that before, where it's like kind of pretty racist and
yeah. No, I think they're I mean, I feel like we're in a little bit of lull in quality, but they're probably still trying to figure out, getting their rhythm and all that. So overall, definitely not bad compared to like that first Next Gen season.
Yep.
Okay, so should we wrap it up there?
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay. I guess that does it for us today. If you've made it this far, listener, thank you for listening. I'm Fletcher. About to say goodbye is Data.
See ya.
Have a wonderful day, and drop by anytime you're feeling homesick.